The message only stayed on Vanessa's phone for less than a second, but Adrian saw it. Not the words, just the way her smile changed when it appeared and disappeared. That was the moment he realized whatever they had was already over. The apartment was too quiet for a Tuesday night. Adrian Cole stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Manhattan penthouse, watching the city pulse beneath him, headlights threading through traffic, neon reflections trembling on glass. The skyline had always comforted him. Predictable, structured, honest in its chaos. Unlike people. Behind him, the soft click of heels echoed across the marble floor. "Sorry, I'm late," Vanessa said, her voice light, almost rehearsed. He didn't turn immediately. Long meeting Adrian asked, his tone neutral, measured. A pause. Barely half a second, but long enough. "Yeah, the Milan team. Time zones are a nightmare." He nodded slowly, as if filing the answer away. Only then did he turn to face her. Vanessa looked flawless as always. Tailored black dress hair, still perfectly styled makeup untouched despite the late hour. But there was something else tonight, something slightly off. Not visible. Felt. "You wait," she asked, already slipping off her heels. I waited. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You shouldn't do that. You know my schedule's insane lately." "I know." Another silence. It stretched, not awkward but hollow, like a space where something used to exist. Vanessa moved into the kitchen, opening the fridge without really looking inside. Adrian watched her, not obviously, not intensely, but with a quiet attention he hadn't used in years. That was the first change. He started noticing things. The way she checked her phone before speaking. The way she angled the screen away from him just slightly but consistently. The way her laughter came quicker now but faded faster. "You okay?" she asked suddenly, catching his gaze lingering a second too long. Adrian blinked once, then stepped forward. "Yeah, just tired." "Same," she said, exhaling softly. "This whole collection is killing me." He nodded again, always nodding, always understanding. That had been their dynamic for years. Adrian, the steady one, the patient one, the one who absorbed. And Vanessa, the one who moved, who burned, who needed more. At least that's how she saw it. Dinner was quiet, not tense, just reduced. They talked about logistics, her upcoming launch event, his firm's new client. Surface-level exchanges, polished and efficient, like two professionals maintaining a brand. At one point, her phone lit up on the table. Just a flicker. A name cut off too quickly to read. Vanessa reached for it instantly. Too instantly. "Spam," she said, locking the screen without checking. Adrian didn't respond. But something inside him shifted. Not dramatically, not painfully. Just precisely. Like a piece of glass sliding into place. Later that night, Vanessa fell asleep facing away from him. That wasn't new. But tonight, Adrian stayed awake. He watched the faint glow of the city spill across the ceiling, listened to the rhythm of her breathing, counted the seconds between each inhale. He wasn't thinking about betrayal. Not yet. He was thinking about patterns. Because patterns didn't lie. People did. The next morning, Vanessa left early. A quick kiss on the cheek. "Don't wait up tonight." "Okay, I won't," he said. And this time, he meant it. By the end of the week, Adrian had stopped asking questions. Not because he wasn't curious, but because he already understood something Vanessa didn't. The moment you start asking the right questions, you're no longer trying to fix the relationship. You're preparing to leave it. That realization didn't hurt as much as he expected. It didn't shatter him. It didn't make him angry. It just clarified everything. And clarity, Adrian knew, was far more dangerous than pain. Because pain begs. Clarity walks away. Vanessa Cole had always believed that control wasn't about force. It was about timing. About knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to pull someone closer, and when to let them feel just enough distance to make them reach for you again. It was a language she had mastered long before she met Adrian, and now she believed she was fluent in it. The studio smelled faintly of chemicals and coffee, sharp, restless, alive. Liam Carter stood behind the camera, adjusting the lens with quiet focus. The late afternoon light filtered through the industrial windows, casting long shadows across the white backdrop. "Turn your chin slightly," he said. Vanessa did. "Like this, yeah, perfect." The shutter clicked. There was something about the way he looked at her, not like Adrian used to, with familiarity and certainty, but like he was still discovering her. like she was unfinished, unpredictable, desired. Vanessa exhaled slowly, letting that feeling settle into her skin. Take 5, Liam said, lowering the camera. She stepped off the platform, reaching for the glass of water on the table. Her phone buzzed lightly beside it. One message. Adrian dinner. Tonight. She stared at it for a second, then placed the phone face down without replying. Work, Liam asked, watching her. Something like that. She said, her tone dismissive but not cold. He leaned against the table, arms crossed. You ever take a break? Vanessa smiled faintly. Breaks are for people who can afford to fall behind. And you can't. She met his gaze. No, it wasn't entirely true, but it felt true enough to say. Later, when she finally checked her phone again, there was another message. Adrian. Never mind, I'll be late anyway. Vanessa felt a flicker of something. Not guilt, not quite. Something closer to confirmation. She typed back, okay, don't wait up. Then locked the screen. That was the pattern now. He reached out. She delayed. He withdrew. And in that quiet exchange, Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Power. That night, she didn't go home immediately. Instead, she followed Liam to a small rooftop bar in Soho, dim lighting, low music, the kind of place where conversations blurred into atmosphere. They sat close, closer than necessary. You're different here, Liam said, watching her over the rim of his glass. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Different? How lighter? Like, you don't have to think about every move. She let out a soft laugh. That's because here I don't. And at home, she hesitated, just for a moment. Then she shrugged casual. At home, everything's expected. By him. Yes. Liam tilted his head slightly. Or by you. The question lingered. Vanessa didn't answer directly. Instead, she leaned back, crossing her legs. Adrian's stable, predictable. He doesn't challenge anything. Sounds like a dream to some people. Not to me. There it was. The justification. Simple, clean, convenient. She wasn't betraying him. She was responding to something that had already been broken. At least that's how she framed it. When Vanessa finally returned home, the apartment was dark. Adrian was already there, sitting on the couch. No TV, no laptop. Just stillness. You're back late, he said without looking at her. Work ran over, she replied, slipping off her coat. Another pause. Then Adrian nodded once. Of course, no questions, no tension, no accusation. Just acceptance. Vanessa felt something twist in her chest. Again, not guilt. Something more unsettling. Disappointment. She walked into the bedroom, changing slowly, listening for any sign that he might follow. He didn't. Didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't ask who she was with. Didn't even look at her when she passed by again. That wasn't how this was supposed to go. Vanessa sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She looked the same. Untouched. In control. So why did it feel like something was slipping? The next few days followed the same rhythm. Adrian became quieter, more distant, but not colder, just less present. He still responded when she spoke, still showed up, still maintained the structure of their life. But something intangible had shifted, like he was no longer inside it. Vanessa noticed. Of course she did. But instead of questioning it, she interpreted it. He's pulling away. He's noticing something. He's waiting. That thought sparked something sharp and electric in her mind. Good, because that meant the moment was coming. The confrontation, the collapse, the scene she had unconsciously scripted, Adrian finding out, Adrian asking questions, Adrian losing composure, and her, standing there calm, composed, deciding whether he was worth forgiving. She imagined it vividly, the way his voice would crack, the way he would demand answers, the way he would look at her not with distance but desperation. And in that moment, she would finally feel chosen. That night, she lay beside him in bed. Adrian was awake. She could tell by the rhythm of his breathing. You've been quiet lately, she said softly. A beat. I've been busy. That's not what I mean. He turned his head slightly, just enough to look at her. What do you mean then? Vanessa held his gaze. For a second, she considered asking directly. Do you suspect anything? Do you care? Do you still want me? But instead, she smiled faintly. Nothing. Just feels like you're somewhere else. Adrian studied her. Not suspiciously, not emotionally, just carefully. Maybe I am, he said. The answer landed heavier than she expected, but she recovered quickly. Well, she said lightly, turning away, don't get too lost. I won't, he replied, and there was something in his tone. Not a promise. Something else. Something final. Vanessa closed her eyes, certain of one thing. Whatever was happening, she was still in control. She just had to wait for the moment everything would surface. And when it did, she would be ready. Across the bed in the quiet dark, Adrian didn't move, didn't speak, didn't reach for her. Because while Vanessa was waiting for the truth to come out, Adrian was already living in it. And he had no intention of asking for anything back. It didn't happen all at once. That was the part no one ever noticed. The absence didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like restraint. Adrian Cole still woke up at the same time every morning, 6:15 a.m., still brewed his coffee, the same way black, no sugar, still stood by the window while the city dragged itself awake beneath him. From the outside, nothing had changed, but Vanessa began to feel it in the smallest ways, the things he stopped doing. Do you want eggs or just toast? She asked one morning, tying her robe tighter as she moved through the kitchen. Just coffee, Adrian replied, not looking up from his phone. He used to look at her. Even in silence, there had always been some acknowledgement, some invisible thread connecting them. Now his attention passed through her, like she wasn't standing there at all. Vanessa paused, glancing at him. You should eat something. I'm not hungry. Two short answers. Clean, efficient, closed. She turned back to the stove, a faint crease forming between her brows. It wasn't rude. It wasn't cold. It was minimal. And somehow that felt worse. At work, Vanessa tried to ignore it. She buried herself in fittings, deadlines, campaign revisions. Her team moved around her like clockwork, responding to her sharp direction, her precise expectations. She was good at this, in control. Here, everything made sense. Unlike the quiet shift waiting for her at home. Her phone buzzed around noon. Adrian meeting ran long. Won't be home early. She stared at the message. No emoji. No explanation beyond the necessary. Just information. She typed back, okay, then hesitated, added, don't overwork yourself. She watched the typing bubble appear, disappear. Then Adrian, I won't. That was it. No follow-up, no softness. Vanessa locked her phone slowly. Something about that exchange lingered longer than it should have. That night she got home first, a rare occurrence. The apartment felt different when Adrian wasn't there. Too still, too quiet. She poured herself a glass of wine, sitting on the edge of the couch, scrolling aimlessly through social media. Images of other people's lives filtered, curated, perfect. Couples smiling at dinners, vacations, anniversaries. She paused on one post, a mutual acquaintance celebrating 10 years of marriage. Still choosing you every day. Vanessa scoffed softly, taking a sip. Choosing, she muttered. As if it were that simple. The door opened an hour later. Adrian stepped in, loosening his tie, his movements calm and unhurried. You're home early, he said. I could say the same. He nodded once to all, setting his keys down. How was work? Busy. Same. And just like that, the conversation ended. Vanessa watched him walk past her, heading toward the bedroom. No kiss, no touch, not even the habitual brush of presence they used to share. Adrian, she called. He stopped, turning slightly. Yeah. She hesitated. What was she even asking for? Attention, reaction, proof that something still existed between them. You forgot your jacket at the dry cleaner, she said finally. A meaningless detail. He nodded. I'll pick it up tomorrow. Okay. Another silence. Then he disappeared into the bedroom. Vanessa exhaled sharply, setting her glass down. This wasn't how it was supposed to feel. He was supposed to notice, to react, to push back. Instead, he was receding. And the more he receded, the less certain she felt. Later that night, they lay in bed, backs turned toward each other. The space between them wasn't large, but it felt deliberate, measured. Vanessa shifted slightly as if testing the distance. Adrian didn't move, didn't respond, didn't close it. Are you mad at me? She asked suddenly. The question hung in the darkness. A long pause. Then no. Too quick. Too simple. Doesn't feel like No, she said quietly. Another pause. Then Adrian turned onto his back, staring up at the ceiling. What does it feel like? Vanessa swallowed. Like you don't care. The words came out softer than she intended. Adrian didn't react immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was even. Would it make a difference if I did? The question caught her off guard. What kind of question is that? A real one. Vanessa turned to face him now, searching his expression. It was calm, unreadable. I'm your wife, she said. Of course it matters. Adrian nodded slowly. Then it should have mattered before. The words were quiet, but they landed with weight. Vanessa's chest tightened. What's that supposed to mean? He turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes for the first time that night. And for a brief moment, there was something there. Not anger, not pain. Something far more unsettling. Distance. Nothing, he said. And just like that, it was gone. He turned away again, closing the conversation with the same quiet precision he had begun it. Vanessa lay there staring into the dark, her mind racing not with clarity, but with fragments. Something was happening. She could feel it, but she couldn't define it. And that lack of definition, that lack of control, started to unsettle her. The next few days followed the same pattern. Adrian responded, but never initiated. Listened, but never engaged. Present, but never involved. He wasn't fighting for the relationship, but he wasn't breaking it either. He was simply stepping back. Vanessa compensated the only way she knew how. She leaned further into Liam. More time, more messages, more validation. Because with Liam, there was reaction. There was desire. There was proof that she still mattered. You ever think about leaving him? Liam asked one evening, tracing his fingers along her arm. Vanessa hesitated, then smiled faintly. Sometimes. She looked at him, her gaze steady. I don't need to rush decisions. Liam studied her. You like being in control, don't you? Vanessa didn't deny it. Someone has to be. But control, she was beginning to realize, only existed when both people were still playing the same game. Back in the penthouse, Adrian sat alone in the living room. No TV, no phone, just silence. On the table in front of him lay a folder, closed, untouched for now. He didn't open it, didn't need to. Everything inside it had already been decided. Because while Vanessa was still calculating outcomes, Adrian had already reached one. And the quiet between them. It wasn't emptiness. It was the space he needed to leave without resistance. Vanessa, lying awake in the bedroom, stared at the ceiling. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar creeping in. Not guilt, not fear, but something far more dangerous. Uncertainty. And uncertainty was the one thing she had never learned how to control. The truth didn't arrive with a confession. It arrived in fragments. Quiet. Unemotional. Undeniable. Adrian didn't go looking for proof the way most people would. There was no confrontation. No late-night accusations. No desperate need to catch anything in the act. He simply followed the pattern. It started with a calendar. Vanessa's schedule, shared as it had always been, was precise to the minute. Meetings, fittings, travel blocks, calls across time zones. But there were gaps now. Small ones. 45 minutes here. An hour there. Unlabeled. Unnecessary. Repeated. Adrian noticed them the same way he noticed everything now, not with suspicion, but with quiet recognition. Patterns didn't lie. Then came the rides. Receipts forwarded automatically to their shared expense account. Black cars. Same pickup location. Same drop-off. Not the office. Not home. A studio in Soho. Again and again. He didn't react. Didn't even open the map the first time. By the third, he already knew. The confirmation came on a Thursday. Unremarkable. Rain tapping lightly against the glass. The city muted in shades of gray. Vanessa had texted earlier, running late. Don't wait up. Adrian had read it. Didn't reply. Instead, he left the office early. Not in a rush. Not with urgency. Just precisely. The building in Soho was older than the ones Vanessa usually worked in. Industrial, discreet, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. Adrian stood across the street, hands in his coat pockets, watching the entrance. He didn't feel nervous, didn't feel angry. He felt still. 42 minutes later, Vanessa stepped out, laughing. Not the polite, measured laugh she used at events. A real one, unfiltered. And beside her, a man. Younger, relaxed, familiar, too familiar. His hand brushed against hers as they walked. Not accidental, not hesitant, practiced. Adrian watched the interaction the way someone watches a scene they've already seen before. No shock, no disbelief, just confirmation. When Liam leaned in to kiss her, Adrian looked away, not because he couldn't bear it, but because he didn't need to see more. That was the moment, not the kiss, not the laughter, but the absence of doubt. He turned and walked back to his car, calm, measured, complete. That night, Vanessa came home just past midnight. Adrian was already in bed, awake, eyes open in the dark. He heard her enter, the soft rhythm of her steps, the quiet hum of the bathroom light, the familiar sounds of someone trying not to be noticed. She slipped into bed beside him, careful, controlled, as if proximity could still pass for intimacy. Long day, he asked quietly. She froze, just for a second, then relaxed. Yeah, she whispered, exhausting. Adrian nodded slightly. I figured. He didn't ask anything else, didn't test her, didn't push, because the truth once confirmed didn't require interrogation. The next morning, Adrian woke up earlier than usual, not out of restlessness, out of clarity. By 8:30 a.m., he was sitting across from Evelyn Hart, a senior partner at his firm, sharp, discreet, and known for handling high-profile separations with surgical precision. She didn't ask unnecessary questions, didn't offer sympathy, only facts. Do you want to confront her? Evelyn asked, reviewing the preliminary notes. No. Do you want to reconcile? Adrian didn't hesitate. No. She nodded once. Then we proceed clean. And that's exactly what he did. The process unfolded quietly. Accounts reviewed, assets separated, legal structures adjusted. Nothing aggressive, nothing punitive. Just intentional. Adrian didn't want to destroy Vanessa. He simply wanted to remove himself from her, completely. At home, the shift continued, but now it had direction. He stopped waiting for her, stopped asking about her day, stopped filling the silence. Vanessa noticed. Of course she did. But now instead of discomfort, she felt something else. Permission. If he's already pulling away, then maybe this is already over. The thought settled easily in her mind. Too easily. With that belief, her restraint disappeared. She stopped hiding as carefully, stayed out later, answered messages in front of him just briefly, just enough to test the boundary. One night, her phone lit up while they were sitting across from each other at dinner. She glanced at it, smiled, then caught herself, but not before Adrian saw. Something funny, he asked. Vanessa looked up composed. Just work. Adrian nodded. Of course. No follow-up, no suspicion, no reaction. Vanessa leaned back slightly, studying him, waiting for something, anything. Nothing came. That absence began to reshape her understanding. He doesn't care. The conclusion formed slowly, but once it did, it solidified. And if he doesn't care, then why should I hold back? That night, she didn't come home. Didn't even send an excuse. Adrian noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. But instead of calling, he opened his laptop, reviewed a document, scrolled once, then closed it. The divorce papers were nearly finalized. Across the city, Vanessa lay tangled in unfamiliar sheets, Liam's arm draped lazily across her waist. You're quiet, he murmured, just thinking about him. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, but the lie felt thinner now, not because she missed Adrian, but because she didn't understand him anymore. Back in the penthouse, Adrian stood by the window again. Same place, same view, but everything inside him had shifted. There was no anger left, no confusion, no questions, only acceptance, not of what she had done, but of what it meant. The relationship wasn't broken, it was finished. And the most dangerous part, Vanessa still thought they were in the middle of it. Adrian exhaled slowly, picking up the folder from the table. This time, he opened it. Inside, everything was in place. Signatures pending, decisions made, endings prepared. He didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. Because closure didn't come from confrontation, it came from action. And while Vanessa was still rewriting the story in her head, Adrian had already written the ending. By the time Vanessa stopped being careful, she had already convinced herself she didn't need to be. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a slow erosion of restraint, layer by layer, boundary by boundary, until nothing felt forbidden anymore. Because in her mind, the rules had already changed. Adrian no longer asked questions, no longer checked in, no longer reacted. And to Vanessa, that silence meant only one thing he had noticed. And he was losing. That belief settled into her with dangerous ease. It gave her permission to stay out later, to respond to messages without turning the screen away, to let her guard slip not recklessly but confidently. Because what she expected now wasn't discovery, it was confrontation. And she was ready for it. "You're different lately," Liam said one afternoon, leaning against the edge of the studio table, watching her scroll through her phone. Vanessa didn't look up. Different? How less? Cautious. That made her smile. "Maybe I'm just tired of pretending." Liam studied her for a moment. "Does he know?" Vanessa paused, then shrugged lightly. "He knows something. And he hasn't said anything, no." Liam let out a quiet breath, something between disbelief and curiosity. "That's strange." Vanessa finally looked at him. "No," she said calmly. "It's predictable." She stood crossing the space between them. "Adrian doesn't do chaos," she continued. "He processes. He waits. He convinces himself he can fix things. And you think that's what he's doing now?" Vanessa tilted her head slightly. "I think he's trying to figure out how to keep me." The words sounded right, comforting, structured. They fit the narrative she needed. Liam didn't fully believe it, but he didn't challenge her either, because in his world things were simpler. You wanted someone, you took the risk. You didn't wait. You didn't calculate. Vanessa, however, had built her entire life on calculation. And this felt like the final move in a game she had already won. That night, she returned home later than usual. No explanation, no message. The door clicked shut behind her, echoing softly through the penthouse. Adrian was in the living room, reading. "You're still up," she said, slipping off her heels. "I live here," he replied without looking up. The tone wasn't sharp, but it wasn't soft either. Just factual. Vanessa smirked faintly, walking past him. "I didn't think you'd wait." "I didn't." A page turned. Nothing more. She stopped, turned back, studied him. "You've been doing that a lot," she said. "Doing what, acting like none of this bothers you." Adrian finally looked up. Not defensive, not curious, just present. "What makes you think it should?" The question caught her off guard. For a split second, she felt something crack in her rhythm, but she recovered quickly. "Because we're married," she said simply. Adrian held her gaze, then nodded once. "Technically." That word lingered in the air. "Technically." Vanessa's smile tightened. "Is that what this is now? Technicalities." It's what's left when everything else becomes optional. Silence. For the first time in weeks, there was tension. Real tension. Not absence, not distance, but friction. Vanessa stepped closer. Slow. Measured. "You don't even ask where I've been anymore." Adrian closed his book, set it aside, then leaned back slightly, studying her with quiet attention. "Would you answer honestly if I did?" The question landed harder than she expected. Her expression didn't change, but something inside her shifted. "That's not the point," she said. "It is to me." Another pause. Longer this time. Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're avoiding it." "No," Adrian said calmly. "I'm choosing not to participate." The words didn't raise his voice, didn't carry emotion, but they disrupted something fundamental in her. Participate in what she asked, her tone sharper now. "In whatever version of this you're still pretending exists." That did it. A flicker of anger surfaced. Finally. "So now I'm pretending," she challenged. Adrian didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her. And that look, that quiet, unwavering stillness, wasn't defensive, wasn't emotional. It was final. "I think," he said slowly, "you've already decided how this ends." Vanessa laughed softly. "And you haven't." Adrian held her gaze for one more second, then reached for his book again. "I have," he said. And just like that, the conversation was over. Vanessa stood there, something unfamiliar tightening in her chest. That wasn't how that was supposed to go. He didn't push, didn't accuse, didn't demand. He didn't fight. And for reasons she couldn't fully explain, that unsettled her more than anything else. Later that night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Adrian beside her. Silent, distant, unreachable. Her mind replayed the conversation, over and over, looking for cracks, for signs, for confirmation that she was still in control. "He's waiting," He has to be. He's just slower about it. That thought steadied her, anchored her back into the narrative she understood. Because the alternative, that he wasn't waiting at all, that he had already moved past the point of confrontation, didn't make sense, didn't fit. And Vanessa had built her entire identity on making things fit. Across the room, Adrian's eyes were open, staring into the dark. He wasn't thinking about her, not the way she imagined. He wasn't wondering if she would confess, wasn't preparing for a conversation, wasn't waiting for anything. He was remembering every detail, every moment, every shift. Not to hold on to them, but to understand exactly when he let go. And somewhere in that quiet reflection, Adrian realized something that made everything else simple. Vanessa wasn't just lying to him, she was relying on him. To behave the way she needed him to break, to beg, to chase. And the moment he didn't, her entire version of reality would collapse. He exhaled slowly, calm, certain. That moment was coming. Vanessa just didn't know she was the only one still waiting for it. The decision once made didn't feel heavy. It felt precise. Adrian reviewed the final page one last time. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just a quiet confirmation that everything was exactly where it needed to be. Once you sign, it's filed immediately. Evelyn said, her tone calm, professional. Assets are already structured. There's nothing left for her to contest emotionally, only legally, and even that window is narrow. Adrian nodded. That's the point. She studied him for a moment. You're unusually composed for this kind of situation. He didn't take it as a compliment. I've had time. That was the difference. Vanessa thought the ending was still ahead of them. Adrian had been living in it for weeks. He picked up the pen. Signed. No dramatic pause. No symbolic wait. Just ink on paper. Final. Do you want to serve her privately? Evelyn asked. Or? No, Adrian cut in gently. A brief silence followed. Then I'll handle it. Evelyn didn't ask how. She didn't need to. Because whatever Adrian was planning, it wasn't impulsive. It was controlled. Across the city, Vanessa stood in front of a mirror surrounded by light. The dressing room buzzed with movement stylists adjusting fabrics, assistants whispering into headsets, phones ringing nonstop. The energy was electric. Alive. This was it. Her biggest show. The collection that would define her career. The moment everything she had worked toward would finally crystallize. You're trending already, one of her assistants said, holding up a phone. Pre-show coverage is insane. Vanessa smiled, smoothing down the front of her dress. Of course it is. Confidence came easily now, effortlessly, because everything was aligning. Her career was peaking. Her relationship with Liam felt real, immediate, alive in a way her marriage hadn't in years. And Adrian had already faded into the background of her life. Not gone, just irrelevant. You nervous? Liam's voice came from behind her. Vanessa met his reflection in the mirror. No. He stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her waist. You should be. This is big. She tilted her head slightly. I don't get nervous anymore. That wasn't entirely true, but it felt true in this moment. Liam watched her carefully. You're sure about everything? He asked quietly. Vanessa turned to face him fully. What does that mean? This, he said, gesturing vaguely. Us. Him. The timing. Vanessa smiled faintly. You worry too much. I just don't want to be temporary. She finished for him. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice soft but certain. You're not temporary, she said. You're what comes after. The words settled between them. Convincing. Comforting. Because in her mind, the transition was already happening. The marriage was dissolving slowly, quietly, inevitably. And when the truth finally surfaced, she would be ready. That evening, the venue pulsed with anticipation. Press lined the entrance. Cameras flashed. Names were whispered. Vanessa moved through it all with practiced ease. Every glance measured. Every smile intentional. This was her world, where she understood the rule, what theirs, where she controlled the narrative. From across the room, Adrian watched. He arrived without announcement. No grand entrance. No attempt to be noticed. Just presence. He stood near the backhands in his pockets observing. Not her success, not the spectacle. Her. The way she moved. The way she smiled. The way she leaned slightly toward Liam when she thought no one was watching. But Adrian was watching, not with jealousy, not with anger, with clarity. Because this wasn't a revelation anymore. It was confirmation of something already concluded. Backstage, Vanessa caught sight of him. For a split second, her expression froze. Adrian, here. Her heart skipped not from fear but from recognition. This was it. The moment. Finally. She excused herself quickly, moving toward him through the crowd. Each step steady. Controlled. Adrian. She said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the noise. I didn't know you were coming. I didn't say I would. She searched his face, looking for signs, emotion, tension, anything. There was nothing. Is everything okay? She asked softer now. A performance within a performance. Adrian held her gaze, then nodded once. Yes, that wasn't the answer she expected. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. You picked an interesting night to show up unannounced. I thought it was appropriate. Something in his tone. Not cold, not warm, just resolved. Made something shift in her chest. Appropriate for what she asked. Adrian reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. Slowly, deliberately. Vanessa's breath caught. There it was. The confrontation. The moment she had been waiting for. Her mind moved quickly, anticipating, structuring, preparing her response. He found out. He's going to ask. He's going to break. And she would decide what came next. Adrian pulled out a thin envelope. Plain, unmarked. He didn't hand it to her yet. After your show, he said calmly. Vanessa blinked, thrown off. What is it? Adrian looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. You'll want to finish your night first. There was no threat in his voice, no emotion, just certainty. And that more than anything made her uneasy. Vanessa forced a small smile. Adrian, if this is some kind of, it's not. He interrupted gently. A pause. Then I'll be here. He stepped back, not waiting for her reaction, not needing her permission. Just stepping out of her space. Vanessa stood there, the noise of the event swelling around her again. But inside, something had shifted. This didn't feel like the confrontation she had imagined. There was no tension, no desperation, no urgency. Just a quiet inevitability she couldn't quite define. And for the first time, the narrative in her head didn't fit the moment in front of her. Across the room, Adrian watched her return backstage. Composed, professional, still performing. But he had seen it, just for a second. The flicker, the beginning of doubt. He exhaled slowly. Everything was in place. Not for a fight, not for closure, for an ending. And unlike Vanessa, Adrian wasn't waiting for it anymore. He was about to deliver it. The music swelled. Applause rippled through the room like controlled thunder. Vanessa stood at the edge of the runway, poised beneath the lights, her final model disappearing behind the curtain as the audience rose to their feet. This was the moment. Her moment. Cameras flashing. Industry elites standing. Names that mattered. Buyers, editors, investors, all focused on her. Validation. Power. Control. She stepped forward, offering a graceful nod, a hand over her chest, acknowledging the room. Her eyes scanned the crowd and found him. Adrian. Still there. Exactly where he said he would be. Something tightened in her chest. Not fear. Not yet. Just anticipation. This is it. She descended from the stage, moving through the crowd as congratulations surrounded her. You were incredible. Career-defining. This changes everything. Vanessa smiled, thanked them, responded with effortless charm. But her attention was elsewhere. Locked. On him. Adrian didn't move toward her. Didn't rush. Didn't interrupt. He waited. And somehow, that felt more deliberate than anything else. Finally, she reached him. The noise dimmed slightly, not because it actually quieted, but because something in the air shifted. A subtle awareness. People nearby slowed, watched. Quite a night, Adrian said. His voice was calm, even, unshaken. Vanessa held his gaze, searching. This is the part where you tell me why you're here, she replied. There was a faint edge beneath her composure now. Adrian nodded once. Right. He reached into his jacket. The same movement as before, measured, unhurried. Vanessa's breath slowed. Her mind aligned itself, instinctively preparing. This was the confrontation, the unraveling, the moment she had already rehearsed countless times in her head. He found out. He's going to ask. He's going to break. And she would control what came next. Adrian pulled out the envelope. Plain, unremarkable. But this time he handed it to her. No hesitation, no flourish. Just a simple extension of his hand. Vanessa took it. Her fingers brushed his briefly. His skin felt distant. Not cold, just absent. What is this? She asked quietly. Adrian met her eyes. And for the first time, there was something there. Not pain, not anger. Finality. Open it. The room around them didn't stop, but it slowed. Subtly. People noticed. Not the content, but the shift. Vanessa slid her finger under the flap, pulled out the documents. Her eyes moved quickly at first scanning, expecting something else. Then they stopped. Her expression didn't shatter, not immediately. It stalled, like her mind had hit something it couldn't process fast enough. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words didn't make sense. Not in this context. Not in this moment. Her grip tightened slightly. She flipped the page. Then another. Signatures. Dates. Legal structure. Already completed. Already real. She looked up. Adrian was still there. Still calm. Still. Steady. What is this? She asked again, but this time her voice had changed. It wasn't control anymore. It was confusion. It's exactly what it says, Adrian replied. Vanessa shook her head faintly. No, this isn't. She lowered her voice sharply. This isn't how this was supposed to happen. There it was. Not denial of the content, but of the sequence. Adrian watched her quietly. You're right, he said. It's not. Her eyes searched his face frantically now, looking for cracks, emotion, anything that resembled the version of him she had prepared for. Where is this coming from? She demanded. You don't just. I do, he said calmly. The interruption wasn't forceful, but it cut cleanly through her words. You don't get to do this without talking to me. She continued, her composure slipping. Without even asking. Asking what? The question landed harder than anything else. Vanessa froze. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Where you've been, he continued. Who you've been with. A pause. I already know. Silence. Not the quiet from before. Not the controlled kind. This silence was exposed. Vanessa's throat tightened. You! But the words didn't come. Because suddenly everything she had built in her mind collapsed. He knew. And he didn't react. Didn't confront. Didn't fight. He left. That's not. She tried again, but her voice faltered. That's not how people handle this. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. I'm not people. Her breathing shifted now. Faster. Uneven. This doesn't make sense, she said almost to herself. You were supposed to. She stopped. Too late. Adrian finished it for her. Break. Her silence confirmed it. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. That's what you were waiting for. Vanessa's control slipped another inch. No, she said quickly. I wasn't. You were. Still calm. Still certain. You wanted the confrontation, he continued. The part where I ask you explain and then you decide whether I'm worth forgiving. Her chest tightened. Because it was true. But hearing it said out loud, stripped of all justification, made it sound hollow. That's not fair, she said weakly. Adrian's expression didn't change. Neither was the rest of it. Another pause. This time longer. Heavier. Vanessa looked down at the papers again, then back at him. You're serious, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. The simplicity of that answer, the absence of hesitation, broke something. This is insane, she whispered. You're throwing everything away without even. I'm not throwing anything away, Adrian said quietly. I'm removing myself from something that's already gone. Her eyes widened slightly. No, she said, shaking her head. That's not true. We can't. Another interruption. Another clean cut. Vanessa took a step closer now, her voice dropping. Urgent. You don't get to decide that alone. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something that resembled emotion. Not love, not anger, understanding. I'm the only one who didn't decide it alone, he said. That was it. That was the moment. Vanessa's breath caught, because suddenly she saw it. Not just what was happening now, but everything leading up to it. The silence, the distance, the absence. It wasn't weakness. It was withdrawal, and it had already happened. You already left, she said, her voice barely audible. Adrian didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the truth was already standing between them. Vanessa's grip on the papers tightened, her hands trembling now. "This isn't over," she said quickly. "We can fix this. We just need to talk." But even as she said it, she heard it. The desperation. The reversal. Adrian stepped back, just slightly. "But enough. It is over," he said. No anger, no volume, just a certainty. And that certainty was something she couldn't control. Around them, the event continued. People watching now, whispers forming, moments being noticed. Vanessa felt it, the shift, not just between them, but around her. Her world still standing but no longer stable. Adrian adjusted his jacket slightly, a small, insignificant movement. "I'll have my lawyer follow up," he said. Professional, detached, final. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. No hesitation, no glance back, nothing. Vanessa stood there, alone, the paper still in her hands, her reflection fractured in the glass behind her. For the first time, there was no narrative left to control, only consequences, and the realization that the moment she had been waiting for had already passed. The silence didn't come immediately. At first, there was noise, applause still echoing from the show, voices layering over each other, congratulations, laughter, the hum of a successful night. But beneath it, something had shifted. Subtly, irreversibly. Vanessa stood exactly where Adrian had left her, the paper still in her hands, her name printed cleanly beside his. A signature she hadn't seen him write because he hadn't needed her to. Vanessa. A voice cut through, distant, concerned. She didn't respond. Her eyes remained locked on the page, reading the same line over and over, as if repetition might change its meaning. It didn't. "Vanessa, are you okay?" Another voice now. Closer. She blinked. Once. Then slowly looked up. The room came back into focus, but not the way it had before. Now people were watching, not admiring, not celebrating, observing. "What's going on?" one of the investors asked quietly. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it again. For the first time in years, she didn't have the right words. "It's nothing," she said, finally forcing a smile that felt unfamiliar on her own face. "Just legal paperwork." The lie landed flat, too thin, too late. Across the room, Liam had already noticed. He moved toward her quickly, his expression tight with concern. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him. And for a brief, disorienting moment, he felt wrong. Not because of what he had done, but because of what he represented. "You knew," she said suddenly. Liam frowned. "Knew what?" She held up the paper slightly. He knew, she corrected. A pause. "And you didn't tell me," she continued, her voice sharpening, not at him but at the situation itself. "I didn't know," Liam said quickly. "Vanessa, I swear." But she wasn't listening anymore. Because the realization was unfolding too fast now. Adrian had known. For how long? Weeks, months. Every conversation, every silence, every look. It all meant something else now. He didn't react. She whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. He didn't even. Her voice broke, just slightly. Because suddenly, everything she had believed about control, about power, about the narrative she was orchestrating, collapsed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but completely. He wasn't waiting, she said. Liam reached for her arm. "Vanessa." She pulled away. Not aggressively, just instinctively. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, this isn't right." Her breathing shifted. Faster now, unsteady. "This was supposed to happen differently," she continued. "He was supposed to stop." The words caught, because she heard them, really heard them. He was supposed to. That was the problem. Vanessa took a step back, then another. The room felt smaller now, closer, watching. "I need air," she muttered. She didn't wait for a response, didn't look at Liam again. She just walked. Outside, the night air hit her like something real, cold, unforgiving. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing, trying to stabilize something that no longer had a center. Her phone buzzed. A notification, then another. She looked down. Mentions, tags, messages, photos from the event already circulating, captions forming, speculation beginning. Someone had seen. Of course they had. A photo blurry but clear enough of her holding the papers, her expression caught mid-shift. The narrative was already slipping out of her hands. "No," she whispered. Her fingers trembled as she opened one of the messages. "Are you okay?" "What happened with Adrian?" Another. "Is it true?" "Divorce. Too fast." Everything was happening too fast. Vanessa locked her phone, pressing it tightly against her palm as if she could stop the spread. But she couldn't. Because this wasn't a private collapse. It was public. And in her world, public meant permanent. The days that followed didn't explode. They unraveled. Quietly. Relentlessly. The headlines didn't accuse. They speculated. Power couple no more behind the perfect image, cracks in the Cole marriage, creative director. Vanessa Cole faces personal turmoil after major show. Clients started calling, then hesitating, then pulling back. Not because of the affair, not directly, but because instability was bad for business. And Vanessa, for the first time, looked unstable. Liam tried to stay, tried to support her, but the energy had shifted. "What do you want to do?" he asked one night, standing in her kitchen, no longer a place of excitement, but of tension. Vanessa stared at him, exhausted, disconnected. "I don't know," she admitted. That answer, more than anything, changed the dynamic between them. Because uncertainty didn't fit the version of her he had been drawn to. The confident one, the decisive one, the one who always knew what came next. This version didn't. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began to pull away. Not with betrayal, not with cruelty, just distance. The same distance Adrian had shown. But this time Vanessa felt it. Every inch of it. Weeks later, she stood alone in the penthouse. Half empty now. Echoing. Adrian had already moved out. Quietly. Efficiently. No arguments. No drawn-out process. Just absence. She walked through the space slowly, touching nothing, looking at everything, trying to find the moment, the exact point where it had all shifted. But there wasn't one. There were dozens, hundreds, small choices, small silences, and she had missed all of them. Across the city, Adrian stood in a different apartment, smaller, simpler, quieter. There were no photographs on the walls, no shared history in the furniture, just space. He poured himself a drink, sat by the window, watched the same city from a different angle. His phone buzzed once. A message. "Vanessa, can we talk?" Adrian looked at it, read it once, then set the phone down. No reply. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to say. Back in the penthouse, Vanessa stared at her phone, waiting. Minutes passed, then an hour, then longer. No response. Her chest tightened, not with hope, but with realization. This was it. Not the confrontation, not the fight, the silence. Final. She sank slowly onto the couch, the weight of everything pressing down, not suddenly, but completely. "I didn't think you'd leave," she whispered. And that, more than anything, was the truth. Because she hadn't. She had built her entire understanding of him around the idea that he would stay, that he would fight, that he would need her more than she needed him. And she had been wrong. The last thing she noticed before the silence settled fully was the absence of something she had never appreciated when it was there. Certainty. Because Adrian had taken that with him and left her with everything else. Final image. Adrian stands by the window, calm, still untouched by the past he has already left behind. Vanessa sits alone in a room once filled with control, now echoing with consequence. One walked away before the ending. The other only understood it after. And by then, it was already too late.